Now, my question to you is Dr. West, do you think that the same old status quo politics, the politics that depends on billionaire campaign funding, the politics that gets support from Wall Street and the insurance companies and the drug companies and the fossil fuel industry, which, by the way, is also polluting and destroying black neighborhoods, giving kids asthma at outrageously high rates, all right? Dr. West, do you think, given the reality of the condition of the African-American community right now, that supporting a status quo, same old type of politician is going to address these issues?
Oh, appreciate that question, Oh, indeed. You asking that kind of profound question, I got to stand up and straighten my back out. Brother Martin used to say, anytime, every day, people straighten their backs up, you're going somewhere, because folk can't ride your back unless it's bent. And I'm not allowing nobody to ride my back. Not at all. But I love you too. But you keep in mind, you see, that when you see me, you see in my mama and daddy, you see in my tradition, my community, you see in Dee Dee Bridgewater from this town and the Betty Carter from this town. But you're also seeing some Michael Moore in me, because it's just not a skin pigmentation matter. Skin pigmentation doesn't determine your moral and spiritual formation. You got to decide who you are. And the reason why I'm with this brother, and I've been with this brother, and I will be with this brother, that's why Brother Danny Glover and I came yesterday and had 11 events in various senior citizen sites. That's why I'm going to be with him all the way through, is because we are experiencing a massive moral and spiritual collapse of integrity, honesty, and decency in the country. And I don't care what color you are, I don't care your gender, I don't care your sexual orientation, it is a moral and spiritual crisis. And this dear brother, my dear brother Bernie Sanders, exemplifies an integrity, honesty, and decency. Do you know how rare that is in the political class when most of them are up for sale? They're up for sale. They tied to big money in all of its various forms. When they ask what are their deepest moral convictions, they got to ask what the latest poll is saying. You don't have to worry about that with this brother. He's never, ever up for sale. That's who he is. That's the kind of brother he is. Let's just be honest about it. That's right. And we're not saying that he's God. We're not saying he's a deity. You know, you say this and the corporate media will say, oh, he got a little cult of personality. It's clear that Brother West has a deep love for Brother Bernie Sanders. Yes, the love is real, but it's brother to brother. We here to be able to keep him accountable as he provides leadership and vision in a moment in which we're about to lose American democracy. We're about to lose it. And you have to ask inside of your own soul, are you going to sacrifice? Or are you going to turn things around on Tuesday? Or are you going to commit your life to something bigger than you? This brother comes out the greatest borough in America, namely Brooklyn. And there's a rich Jewish tradition that comes out of Brooklyn that tells the young brothers and sisters part of the genius of Hebrew scripture, whether you were religious or secular, has to do with hesed. It has to do with steadfast love. And justice is what love looks like in public. You are to focus on the orphan, the widow, the motherless, the fatherless, the oppressed, the persecuted, the subjugated, the dominated. That is a moral and spiritual force working through the soul of Bernie Sanders. That's what it is. It's his mama inside of him. commitment, and we are at a pivotal moment. That's why he's unprecedented in American history. That's why this campaign and movement is unprecedented. We got three choices. We got a neo-fascist gangster in the White House. And when I talk about gangster, I'm not talking about hatred. I'm not talking about hatred. I'm a Christian. I believe in charitable Christian hatred. Oh, yes. Well, you hate the sin, but you still try to love the sinner. We hate injustice. We hate exploitation. We hate domination, but we can stay in contact with the humanity of others. That's one reason why Brother Bernie is able to stay in contact with the humanity of all of those who disagree with him. You see how he began this thing. That's the kind of brother he is. That's what we love about him. But at the same time, he's on fire against what ought to be hated. Injustice. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what gender you are. If it's wrong, if it's oppressive, you have to take a stand. That's why we got to be part of this campaign and this movement. And let us be very clear in terms of our context as it relates to black people. When I say neo-fascism, I mean the rule of big money and big military with a strong man who will scapegoat the most vulnerable so that we cannot come together and confront the most powerful. A disregard of rule of law, a demonizing of the weak and the vulnerable, the exact opposite of Hesed. But then we've got the second choice, which is a neoliberal centrist. Oh, no, we can just boo for the policies. We can boo for the policies. We got to be clear what the choice is. Because the neoliberal centrist is still tied to big money. That's the billionaires that's tied to the brother. They still tied to big military. That's why he could support the invasion and occupation of Iraq and not just support it, brag about it. Martin Luther King Jr. said militarism, materialism, racism, and poverty, they're going to suck the very juice out of democracy. So this is a global, this is an international affair because a baby in Ethiopia and Guatemala, a baby in Argentina, a baby in Flint, a baby in Tel Aviv, a baby in Gaza, a baby in Chile, and a baby in Mississippi have exactly the same value, exactly the same significance. That's what Bernie Sanders understands. That's what he represents at the heart of who he is. When you're a neoliberal centrist, you can lip sing fairly well some of the progressive themes every 4 years. But like Milli Vanilli, we want the real thing. Bernie Sanders is the real thing. We want the real thing. Isn't that true, Sister Nina? We want the real thing. We're not degrading him as a human being. We're talking about the qualitative break because the neo-fascist now in the White House and the neoliberal who all of a sudden now is coming back to life. Coming back to life. And the catalyst was my own black people. Oh, I'm so disappointed. Oh, I'm so upset. I think about the legacy of Frederick Douglass and Ida B. Wells Barnett. I think about the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. I think about the legacy of Ella Baker. I think about the legacy of A. Philip Randolph. They always said, focus on the least of these. What are you doing for the poor and working classes? There's no other campaign that represents that better than Bernie Sanders. No other one. No other one. Brother Bernie. That's right. So then, but then the question becomes, why not the third option? And keep in mind, Brother Bernie's running on a progressive neo-populist platform. He and I are democratic socialists. It's not a democratic socialist platform. It's building on FDR. It's building on Martin Luther King Jr., who also was a Democratic, but he's not running on that. So all the lies about socialism and communism keep track of the moral and spiritual spirit and fire of what Bernie is doing. Don't get caught in the isms. We're talking about the preciousness of poor and working people. But my last point is this. When it comes to the chocolate side of the country. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. No, I got a deep love for my black people. I wouldn't be standing here without black love, without my mom and my daddy in Shiloh Baptist Church and Willie P. Cook, my vacation Bible school teacher. And I say, what has happened that first black leadership itself has become so open to just money and status, rather than bearing witness to a justice that makes them over against the status quo. Black people historically have always been the most progressive community in the history of this nation. 244 years of white supremacist slavery, 100 years of neo-slavery called Jim and Jane Crow. We've been on the cutting edge, but since the 1940s, since 40 years ago, all of a sudden we got a wave of black middle-class folk who think that somehow their access to opportunities is the measure of black progress rather than Precious, Shaniqua, and Jamal on the corner. So they didn't really zero in on the mass incarceration regime. They don't talk about the decrepit school systems in the hood. They don't talk about inadequate housing. They don't talk about not enough jobs with a living wage. They don't talk about the need for Medicare for everybody that's going to disproportionately help black people and brown people and red people. What has happened to our black leadership? Some of them just sold out. Other ones have just given up. And the rest of them, they're so scared. They're so addicted to the familiar. They don't want to step out on the best. They want to settle on the mediocre and the middling. I'm going with the best of America. I'm going with Bernie Sanders.
Well, I think Dr. West answered the question. And let me just pick it up and thank the panelists for all of their fantastic, not only being here tonight, every single one of these people is working to create a better Michigan and a better America. They have taken on powerful special interests their entire lives, and I thank them all. But I want to just conclude on this. I can't quite pick up what Dr. West did. I don't have that ability. But here's what I get back to. I get back to the fact that every day we are told by Congress, we are told by the pundits, we are told by the media what we can do and what we can't do. And I think it's time we went into our own hearts and determined what we can do. I live 50 miles away from the Canadian border. They guarantee health care to every man, woman, and child. You leave the hospital, no bill, their life expectancy longer than the United States of America. If the Canadians could do it, if the Europeans could do it, if the Scandinavians could do it, the United States of America could do it. Don Rigo mentioned the outrage, the immorality of 3 people in America owning more wealth than the bottom half of our country. We got people in Michigan and Vermont working 2 or 3 jobs. Don't tell me that we cannot create an economy that works for working people, not just billionaires. Don't tell me that we cannot invest in our young people, Black and Latino, Native American, and create the jobs and the opportunity they need to thrive in life. It costs less to send a kid to the University of Michigan than to send that kid to jail. Let's send them to the University of Michigan. when we are spending billions and billions of dollars building nuclear weapons of every kind of advanced Western weapons system. We got schools in Detroit, in Michigan, and in Vermont that are crumbling. How about investing in our kids, in our schools, not just in weapon systems? We could do that. So what this campaign is about, and I'm not quite as articulate as Dr. West, but what this campaign is about is understanding a few basic things. If we are prepared to imagine a different future, we can bring about that future. If we think that we have to continue working for slave wages, you're going to continue working for slave wages. If you think you don't deserve health care as a right, you're never going to get health care as a right. If you think that climate change and the destruction of the planet is inevitable and that there's nothing we can do about it, that's exactly what will happen. Now, at the end of the day, and I know a little bit about this, Don Regal knows about it, we all know about it. The 1% is very, very powerful. I deal with them in the Senate every damn day. I deal with their people who they elected. I deal with people who say, oh, we can't raise the minimum wage. We can give tax breaks to billionaires. We can't build affordable housing. We can put billions into the fossil fuel industry. We can't deal with homelessness and do the issues that we have to because we don't have the money, they say. So what we have got to do is understand that at the end of the day, the 1%, they're very powerful. No buts, ifs and buts about it. They have endless amounts of money. You saw what Bloomberg did, just as a perfect example. Guy said, hey, you know what? I'd like to be president of the United States. Well, a lot of people would like to be president of the United States, but he proceeded to try to buy the election. Spent $500 million. And by the way, that's just a fraction. That's a tiny fraction of his wealth. Doesn't matter. What's $500 million when you're worth $60 billion? And it's not just Bloomberg, it's other people who put money into people's campaigns. All right? What our understanding must be is that the 1% is very, very powerful. They control the economy. They control, to a large degree, our political system. They own the media. That's the facts. But at the end of the day, the 1% is 1%. And if we do not allow Trump, don't allow Trump to try to divide us up based on the color of our skin, based on where we were born, based on our sexual orientation, based on our religion, based on our gender. If we don't allow Trump to divide us up, if we stand together around an agenda that works for all of us, and you've heard some of that agenda here tonight, there is nothing that can stop us. When people stand together at the grassroots level, that's how change takes place. That's what everybody here is saying. We all know that. All right? And that's what we've got to do. So Tuesday is a very, very important election, very important. I'm here to ask for your support. I'm asking your help to win the Democratic nomination. And together, I'm asking your help to defeat the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country. Thank you all very much.